Hey, it's Marie. I haven't uploaded a video in a while. I've been kind of busy with job stuff and depression. So today is the 25th of March, which means today's the release of Kirby and the Forgotten Land. So lately I've watched a lot of videos on YouTube of people making dioramas of different games or just random stuff. It kind of inspired me to try to do that too, and so I decided to make a diorama inspired by Kirby and the Forgotten Land. I took some screenshots of the trailers. Based on them, I made a tiny little landscape, and today I'm gonna show you the process of that, so enjoy, have fun, let's go. Okay, so let's go. So first up, this is the silicone mold I'm using for the kind of size. I want this to be the square. So I mixed up this gray polymer clay color and I'm using the silicone mold just to roughly get the size. I'm gonna cut it down to the exact size later. First up, I'm gonna just leave it a little bit bigger while I'm working on the landscape parts. So I got the square, this is the base. And then I mixed up a nice green color for the grass. Put it on there and kind of smoothed it out a little bit. Then I used this gray color again to kind of build some cliffs. Well, cliffs. Little platforms, I guess. You can see in the screenshot there are these little platforms that you can jump up on that lead to the city. So I'm just cutting little pieces of this gray clay to create these little platforms. And I'm making them thinner and thinner so they keep getting smaller, and you have these kind of stairs leading up to the big platform. I'm not doing exactly what you can see in the screenshot, you just can't see it well enough, but I'm doing basically an inspired version. And then I'm coming back to the green polymer clay that I mixed, and I roll it out really thin, and then I take some pieces of that and put them on the little platforms, and then use my cutting tool again to just cut it to the same shape as the platforms they're on. So it's basically just these little platforms covered with grass. And I like the look of it so far. At this point I had a lot of fun. I didn't expect it because I usually don't like working in this small scale, but it was really fun. I liked it. It was sometimes a bit finicky to get it exactly in the right position, and I struggled a little bit with that. I'm just not good with such small things, but it worked out and it's looking good. So then I mixed up this color. It's also kind of grayish, a little bit brown, a little bit purple, and that's basically the gravel road that you can see in the screenshots. And I just rolled out a little snake of that, put it in a nice swirly pattern on the grass, patted it down, and then I'm using this little pointy tool to texture it so it looks like gravel, little stones, and yeah, a little bit scattered around. And I'm repeating the same thing for the other platforms. Just putting little snakes on there in a nice curve, patting them down, and then texturing them. And then I used a little bit more of the green, and I put it on the big platform. Basically, I want the platform to have a little bit of green, like it's overgrown, but also so you can still see a lot of the gray, which is supposed to be, I guess, the asphalt of the city. And then I was done with the big environment pieces, so I cut it down to size using the guides that you can still kind of see on the grass. So basically in the end it's gonna fit in that rectangle mold that I showed you. And then I'm using a little cotton swab with some alcohol, because there was a lot of dust and dirt on it at this point, and I just used that to kind of wipe it away and clean it up. And then I made this brown color and made another very tiny thin snake, and that's supposed to be the fence on the side of the grass. Again, kind of like with the path, I just put it in a nice curvy shape cut down the edges. But this time I didn't press them down, since it's a fence, it's not flat. And then in the screenshot you can see that the fence is, oh my god, I cannot talk. In the screenshots you can see that the fence is divided in different pieces with little gaps in between them, so I'm using my sharp cutter tool to cut them out and then remove them with the pointy tool, so we can have these little segments basically. Then I rolled out an even smaller snake, and I'm cutting off little pieces because every fence segment has 3 fence posts. So I'm cutting out little segments and putting them on the fences to kind of give the illusion of there being fence posts. This was a bit finicky because, yeah, it's very small as you can see. But it still worked out. It worked surprisingly well, and I think it's a nice little touch, a nice little detail. Next up, I mixed this kind of teal color, because what you can see in the screenshots, behind the fences there are these little flower fields, and the grass there is a bit more bluish, a bit more teal. At first I thought it was water when I saw the trailers, and then when I was looking at it really closely I was like, oh wait, no, that's more grass. So right now it's also looking like water, but it's gonna change in a minute. So I just kind of filled in the fence part with this. And then I went back to the green color that I had for the grass and created some little mounds, because the land isn't completely flat and I wanted to create some little hills, basically. Well, hills, they're mounds, but just to get a bit of variety in the landscape. And I put a few of them here and there, and then using my silicone tool I smoothed them out. They're not perfectly smooth, it's just hard on this small scale, but it's still, it looks nice, I like it. And then I'm using the pointy tool to texture the more teal kind of grass, because what you can see in the screenshots is that it's pretty high grass, tall grass, I guess. So by texturing it, I'm trying to give it the illusion of it being tall, wild grass. And I think it worked. I think it looks nice. And then I mixed up this light gray color and another even lighter gray color. You can't see that right now, but later. And I'm using that for the buildings in the city part. Basically, I'm just cutting out little cubes, and then I'm getting a bit of wire to stick in there because I was afraid that they would just fall off or not stick to the platform. So I used this little wire to push them in. And I cut out a few different buildings of different sizes, and I'm trying to make it look as random as possible, or just, you know, to get some variety in there, because I don't want all the buildings to look the same. That's also why I used the 2 different gray shades. And you can see a bit of wire sticking out of 2 of the buildings, but that's okay because I'm covering them in grass because they're abandoned and kind of overgrown. So I'm using more of the green clay to add this grass or moss or vines that are just hanging on the buildings. And that worked really well, just to use the tool and kind of scrape out little pieces of it, so they already have this texture that looks kind of like moss or something. And at this point, this was a lot of fun. I like this step, so I was trying not to go overboard, but I just added a lot of it everywhere. But I think the effect of it is nice, it looks good. Then I rolled some small little balls of the gray clay and put them everywhere just as little rocks that are sticking out on the side, and I'm again using a silicone tool to kind of give them a more angled look and to make them less perfectly round. And with these 2, I'm covering them with some green clay to give the illusion of moss growing on them. And then I added some more little green spots here and there to make it look like little patches of grass that are just growing a bit higher than the rest of the grass. And it adds something more interesting to it. I'm adding some more smaller stones here and there. And then I'm using this brown color that I mixed up to make some trees. Again, I used some pieces of wire so they would stick. And I'm basically just wrapping the clay around the wire, sticking it in there, and then using my tools to make them look a bit more like trees. And I added 3 of them in total. Spaced them out nicely, so there's just a bit going on everywhere. And then I rolled some more balls of the green clay. I put 3 of them together and then 1 ball on top, and that's basically the leafy part of the tree. Because in Kirby they are also kind of roundish and more stylized, and so that's what I was trying to emulate with that. And I think it looks cute. And I was surprised at how well they were sticking, because I thought they would just immediately fall apart. But it worked. And then I'm using some more of this brown to create this little ramp that connects 2 of the platforms. I don't know why in the screenshot you can also see that there are only 2 platforms that are connected by a ramp and the rest they're not, but sure. And then I'm using some yellow, and I'm doing basically the same thing that I did with the green parts on the buildings to create the illusion of flowers that are growing all over the grass. And it's looking pretty good so far. So next up, I'm cutting out some more brown pieces. Oh, well, it's just 1 brown piece to create a bit of a tree stump. And then I mixed up this light orange color to create the star boxes. I don't know what, they probably have an actual term. You know, the orange boxes with the star on it. And then I also got some little pieces of dark red clay to make some little mushrooms that are sitting by the fence. And then I had to create these little creatures, the little fox-like creatures. I wanted 2 of them, so I rolled out all these tiny pieces. They are so tiny. I wanted them to look more, well, realistic. Well, the way they actually look, and to make them look really cute. But as you can see, it's such a small scale, and I was struggling so hard. So they are more, well, they kind of just look like little blobs. But that's okay. It was just, I think in my head I thought they would be bigger, but then because I made all the landscape pieces so small, they obviously also had to be really small. And yeah, I condensed it down here, but this took me so long. And yeah, I think they look okay, considering it's such a tiny scale. For the other one I was a bit smarter and put it together on the environment, yeah. And then I got this pink color and this reddish pink color for Kirby, of course. Very important, putting the feet down first. And then rolling even tinier balls and it's so funny. And kind of trying to smooth them out a bit against his body to create his little hands. And it's so tiny. And then I stuck it on there. And yeah, that's it. It's looking really cute. So then I was basically done with the clay part and I had to bake it. I was so scared that things would fall off or break or explode or anything, but it all worked out. It was fine. Here's the finished piece, or well, it's finished baking. And I'm happy with it so far. I think it looks really cute. There are so many little details. And then I thought I would use some other tools to create some more little details. First of all, I got these chalk pastels in green and yellow because the grass has different colors everywhere. Some parts are more yellowish, some parts are more dark green. And so I used that to kind of shade the grass and give it a bit more dimension. And I'm really happy with that. I think, especially with the yellow patches, or well, yellowish greeny patches, it looks really good. It looks really good. It's a nice little bonus. Then with some white and later on with some black, I went over the path to give it a bit more dimension too, make it a bit more interesting. And this worked really well. I was surprised. I wasn't sure if it would work well, but it did. Very happy about it. That's how it looks so far. And then I cleaned my apartment and carelessly put stuff on my desk, and accidentally the trees and one of the little guys fell off. Whoops. Luckily I found them all. I was really worried they were just gone. So I just glued them back on. Yeah, that was kind of dumb of me. Whoops. But it's all okay. It's all fixed. And then I used Posca pen and beige to add the kind of outlines on the little orange boxes. I didn't add the star because, well, it's so small. It doesn't fit. But just the outlines, I think that already helps. And then adding some red details. And also faces to the little guys. They don't look good. They look a bit funny. But that's okay. they're tiny. And also going in with a gray pen for the houses. And then I added a lot more details to the houses. I just had to go in really close and I couldn't really film it because I was like a millimeter away from my face. But first I added the flowers on the grass. They are yellow, pink and white ones. And first of all, I did the yellow. And then while I waited for it to dry, I went in with a green kind of brush pen to add some more dimension to the trees and some more fun spots to the grass, just to make it even more interesting. And it really adds something. I like the way it looks like that. And these are basically water-based brush markers or brush pens. And then the yellow is dried, so I added the pink flowers. I'm basically just making little dots because you can't make out much of the detail anyway. And then also going in with a brown brush pen for the trees. And here's where I added the details of the buildings, as you can see, and then the white flowers on top of the other colors. And it's looking so cute. I love this. This looks so great. Some more details with a darker green. And some black details for the asphalt. And then with some black chalk pastels, I went into the buildings to give them a bit more dimension and to make them look a bit more weathered down. Then the fence, of course, also needs a little bit more shading. I enjoyed this step a lot. This was really fun. And then lastly, I went in with a yellow pencil to just give the edges of the platforms a bit more of a lighting effect, to make them stand out a bit more. And this is how it's looking. I love the way this looks. It looks so great. I'm really happy with it. I then went over it with a bit of hairspray to keep it in place, and then here I'm adding a layer of UV resin to kind of seal it all together. This is for the next step. I wasn't sure if I should do it because I really like the way it looked just by itself, but I wanted to create a whole cube with this mold that I used in the beginning to have basically a bit of sky, and I decided to do it anyway, and yeah, well, I'm still happy with it. So basically I'm putting it in the mold, and then I want to create a whole cube and this kind of sky by using some resin. So I'm mixing up about 100 grams of resin. It's a 2-to-1 resin, 66 grams of part 1 and 33 part B. So yeah, I mixed it up very slowly and carefully so I wouldn't get any bubbles. And then I poured it on there. I was so nervous because I was really worried that I would screw it up because I was so happy with it. And I'm still not sure what I prefer. If I prefer the version with resin or without, but it has resin, so it's too late anyway. And then a day later, I unmolded it. And something that I worried about that did actually happen is that the sides are a bit dull because my mold is kind of old and used. But so I went in to fix that by first of all sanding off the very sharp edges at the top. And then when they were nice and smooth, I decided to take some UV resin. And I'm basically gonna cover all the sides with a thin layer of UV resin. First of all, the top, make it nice and smooth. And basically that will help to bring a bit of the shine back. That has the side effect of the cube not being completely straight and perfectly cube shaped anymore, I guess. Because the sides are a bit more uneven now, but that's okay. It's either it's a perfect cube or it's perfectly see-through, so yeah. And I used a lighter to kind of get rid of some of the bubbles. I decided the bottom part, the sand, I want it to be matte because it's, well, the sand is not that shiny. And this is the finished look. Here it is, you can see that the cube isn't completely perfectly cubed anymore. But I still think it looks amazing. It looks great, especially considering this is the first time I did it. I'm really happy with it. I didn't think it would work that well, but it looks so cute. Still don't know if I like it better with resin or without, but it's cool, and now it's gonna be like this forever. This was a lot of fun, unexpectedly. I thought I would hate every minute of it, but I didn't. And maybe I'll do it again, maybe I won't, I don't know. but it was fun. Alright, so here we are. Here's the finished tiny little diorama. It's really tiny. It would have been cool if it was like perfect cube, but that's okay. And there are a few bubbles here and there, which sucks, but that's also alright. I think for my first try making a tiny little world like that, it's really not bad at all. Anyway, if you play Kirby and the Forgotten Land, have fun. No spoilers, I'm gonna play it sooner or later when I have the money. So yeah, take care, stay happy, stay healthy, and I will see you next time. Okay, bye!